Sit down and be quiet. Judge Judith Sheindlin doesn't wait for pleasantries. The courtroom falls silent as a young woman in designer clothes scrolls through her phone, barely acknowledging the bench. Her name is Alexandra Whitmore, 24 years old, and she's treating Manhattan civil court like a minor inconvenience. Miss Whitmore, put that phone away right now, or I'll have the bailiff confiscate it. Alexandra looks up slowly, one eyebrow raised. I'm here, aren't I? Her attorney, Richard Steinberg, rises immediately. Your Honor, my client is prepared to resolve this matter today. She'll pay whatever fines are necessary. Mr. Steinberg, sit down. This is not a vending machine. I want the truth, not the sanitized version you rehearsed in the hallway. Are we clear? The attorney sits, his expensive suit suddenly feeling less protective. Bailiff Petroselli, do we have the body cam footage ready? Yes. Your Honor. Good. The clerk, Mrs. Henderson, steps forward with a thick file. Case number 2024CV12943. State of New York versus Alexandra Camille Whitmore. The charges are unauthorized parking in a designated accessible loading zone, destruction of official city documentation, failure to appear on 4 separate court summons, and contempt of court. The citation was issued by Officer Maria Torres on Monday, June 17, at 10:15 a.m. on Madison Avenue. Judge Sheindlin studies Alexandra with a penetrating gaze honed over 30 years on the bench. Miss Whitmore, did you receive the 4 summons sent to your residence? My assistant handles all mail. That's not what I asked. Did you receive them? Yes or no? I suppose they arrived. You suppose? Mrs. Henderson. Confirmation? Yes. Your Honor, 4 notices over 7 weeks. May 2nd through June 22nd. All signed for at the defendant's address. So you were notified 4 times over nearly 2 months. And you ignored every single one. My schedule is complicated. Complicated? Let me tell you what's complicated. Miss Whitmore, complicated is getting your wheelchair-bound child to a medical appointment when someone blocks the only accessible entrance. But we'll get to that. The judge flips through pages. I also see this isn't your first violation. 2 years ago at NYU, you blocked a fire lane. You told the officer, and I quote, "My family endowed 3 buildings here. Find somewhere else to tell me what to do." That's pattern evidence. Now walk me through June 17th. Alexandra sighs. I had a dermatologist appointment on Madison Avenue. There was an empty loading zone with blue striping. I parked there. An accessible loading zone designed for wheelchair lifts. No one was using it. I was only inside 20 minutes. How long were you actually inside? Maybe 35 minutes. Mrs. Henderson. Officer Torres's report? The clerk reads. At 10:15 a.m., I observed a white Range Rover parked illegally in an accessible loading zone. The zone had clear markings and signage. The vehicle displayed no accessible permit. I placed a citation on the windshield at 10 to 18 a.m. At 10:47 a.m., I observed the driver remove the citation, tear it into pieces, and discard it in a trash receptacle. I approached to inform her that destroying a citation is a separate violation. The defendant stated, "This is absurd. Do you have any idea who my father is?" I explained the citation was valid regardless of family connections. She then stated, "My family's donations fund half the programs in this city. You work for us." When I confirmed I work for all citizens of New York. she said. Then maybe my father should reconsider his next donation to the mayor's re-election campaign. Judge Sheindlin's eyes narrow. Miss Whitmore, did you threaten to withdraw political donations? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Richard Steinberg stands. Your Honor, that was heat of the moment frustration. Mr. Steinberg, when your client threatens a city employee with her family's wealth, that's not frustration. That's corruption. Sit down. Petrocelli. Play the body cam. The screen flickers. Officer Torres's voice is professional. Ma'am, you parked in an accessible loading zone. This citation is valid. Alexandra's voice drips with contempt. Do you know who my father is? William Whitmore. Whitmore Capital. We practically own half of Manhattan. You work for us. Ma'am, I work for all citizens of New York. Then maybe my father should reconsider his campaign donations. See how long you keep this job. The footage ends. Silence fills the courtroom. Judge Sheindlin leans forward. Let me be clear. Miss Whitmore, nobody here works for you. Your father's money doesn't buy authority over public servants or exemptions from the law. Alexandra's cheeks flush. That's not fair. Fair? Mrs. Henderson. Is Jennifer Martinez available? Yes. Your Honor, she's on the line. A woman's voice fills the courtroom. Steady, but strained. Thank you. Your Honor, I'm Jennifer Martinez. My son Carlos is 8 years old and has muscular dystrophy. He uses a powered wheelchair. On June 17th, I needed to pick up his medication on Madison Avenue. When we arrived at 10:35 a.m., the accessible loading zone was blocked by a white Range Rover. I couldn't deploy our ramp. I circled 3 times, searching for another accessible spot. There was nothing. I had to park 4 blocks away and carry my 62-pound son in summer heat. By the time we reached the pharmacy and returned, we'd missed his physical therapy window. It took 3 weeks to reschedule. 3 weeks without therapy for a boy whose muscles deteriorate without consistent treatment. Did you see the driver? Yes. Your Honor. A young woman on her phone, laughing. She saw me struggling with Carlos. She made eye contact. Then she drove away. Thank you. Mrs. Martinez, your testimony is on record. The line clicks off. Judge Sheindlin turns to Alexandra. That woman carried her disabled son 4 blocks because you decided your appointment was more important than someone else's right to access. When you saw her, you did nothing. You just drove away. Do you have anything to say? Alexandra looks uncomfortable. I didn't know about the disabled kid. You didn't need to know. The blue striping. The signs. The wheelchair symbols told you everything. But you didn't care. Richard Steinberg rises. Voice aggressive. Your Honor. The Whitmore family has contributed over $40 million to city programs. They fund shelters, education, medical research. They're pillars of this community. Mr. Steinberg. Charitable. Donations don't create a free pass. Your client could have $1 billion foundation and it wouldn't change the facts. She parked illegally, destroyed a citation, threatened a city employee, and ignored 4 court summons. Sit down before I hold you in contempt. The attorney sits, visibly shaken. Mrs. Henderson, tell me about contacts this court received regarding this case. Yes, Your Honor. We received 2 phone calls and 1 voicemail from Whitmore Capital Group's legal department on June 17th. We also received an email at 11:50 a.m. from the Whitmore Foundation's Director of Strategic Partnerships. The email requested to discuss resolution options that would be mutually beneficial and could be handled discreetly without public attention. Judge Sheindlin's voice turns to ice. Mutually beneficial. Discreetly. That's code for, we'll keep writing checks if you make this disappear. The citation was issued at 10:18 a.m. The first call came at 11:30 a.m. Someone moved fast. Someone has a protocol for making problems disappear. Your Honor, my client isn't responsible for her family's communications. Maybe not. Mr. Steinberg. But somebody knew exactly what to do. That tells me the Whitmore name has been used this way before. Judge Sheindlin faces Alexandra directly. Miss Whitmore, I've been on this bench for 30 years. Money doesn't make you better. It just makes you think you're better. And that delusion is what we're dealing with today. Your father built an empire. Good for him. Your family supports charities. Wonderful. But those things don't give you ownership over public infrastructure or the right to threaten a city employee. I understand I made mistakes. You're going to pay. Here's my finding. Based on Officer Torres's credible, corroborated report, photographic evidence, body cam footage, and witness testimony, I'm fining you maximum penalties. Unauthorized parking, $400. Destruction of documentation, $200. Failure to appear, $400 total. Contempt of court, $300. Administrative fees, $150. Your total is $1,450. Alexandra looks relieved. I'm not finished. I'm adding a restorative justice component. Complete it fully and on time. I'll remit $600. Fail or half-ass it. You pay the full amount plus a $500 additional penalty. First, write personal apologies to Officer Torres and Mrs. Martinez, in your own words, demonstrating you understand what you did wrong. Officer Torres has agreed to meet you in person if your written apology meets her standards. Mrs. Martinez will decide whether she wants to meet you. Second, 200 hours of community service. 70 hours at City Harvest Food Rescue. 60 hours at the Disability Rights Advocacy Center for Accessibility Audits. And 70 hours at the Public Interest Research Group for Good Government Work. No social media posts. No photo opportunities. No press releases. Third, create 3 public education workshops for high school students about disability rights and civic responsibility. Fourth, complete a 40-hour ethics course on power and privilege. Fifth, write a 1,500-word reflection on accountability and wealth. If it sounds like marketing copy, I'm rejecting it and adding 100 more hours. Your Honor, that's excessive. Yes, it is. Because your violation wasn't about parking. It was about a worldview that needs correcting. You humiliated Officer Torres by suggesting her job was for sale. You humiliated Mrs. Martinez by forcing her to carry her disabled son 4 blocks. You humiliated this court by ignoring 4 summons. Richard Steinberg's voice tightens. This goes beyond punishment. Your client threatened corruption of the legal process. I'm restoring balance. Judge Sheindlin continues. I'm also making recommendations to court administration. Establish a donor influence registry logging all contact attempts about cases involving major donors. Create mandatory recusal protocols. Implement immediate towing for accessible zone violations. Launch awareness campaigns about accessibility rights. Establish an anonymous hotline for reporting attempts to use wealth to influence proceedings. These recommendations will protect the integrity of the system. You have 6 months to complete everything. Report monthly to your supervisor. 1 missed appointment. one incomplete assignment, one social media post, and the agreement is revoked. Judge Sheindlin pauses. One more thing. The body cam footage showing your threat about campaign donations is being forwarded to the district attorney's office for review of possible criminal intimidation charges. Alexandra's eyes widen. Criminal charges? Correct. Attempting to influence a public servant through threats of withdrawn political donations is a crime. You brought this on yourself. Richard Steinberg tries once more. Would you advocate with the DA if she completes the program? No. That's between them. My job is accountability. Judge Sheindlin gathers her papers. Before you leave, think about this. Your father built his fortune through hard work, but wealth is just a tool. It can build hospitals or buy influence. It can fund scholarships or purchase special treatment. How you use it reveals character. Your father made his choice. Now make yours. This court stands adjourned. Your first appointment is Monday, 9 a.m. City Harvest. Don't be late. One more thing. Miss Whitmore, the body cam footage of you threatening Officer Torres is going into judicial training materials as an example of how wealth corrupts respect for institutions. Every time a judge watches it and holds a powerful defendant accountable, you'll have contributed to justice. Think about that. Over the following months, Alexandra begins her requirements. The first apology to Officer Torres is rejected as too polished. She rewrites it in her own words, making it honest and direct. The second version is approved. Officer Torres agrees to meet at a coffee shop in Hell's Kitchen. The conversation lasts 45 minutes and includes long, uncomfortable silences. When you said my job depended on not offending your family, you made everything I'd worked for feel like something your money could erase. I believe rules apply to everyone. You tried to take that away from me. I accept your apology because you're starting to understand why it was wrong. Jennifer Martinez declines the in-person meeting, but emails through the court. Your apology helps. It doesn't return the 3 weeks my son missed. But it shows you're trying to understand. The community service transforms her understanding. At City Harvest, she sorts donations and stocks shelves. The work is physical and unglamorous. By hour 10, she begins to understand what real labor means. At the Disability Rights Advocacy Center, Supervisor Martin Chen teaches her to measure ramp angles and door widths. A ramp that's too steep isn't inconvenient. It's dangerous. When you blocked that zone, you didn't delay someone. You denied them access. You made them invisible. At the Public Interest Research Group, she researches how political donations influence policy. She learns about pay-to-play schemes and begins to understand that her threat to Officer Torres was part of a larger pattern undermining democratic governance. The workshops challenge her. The first presentation is stiff and rehearsed. The supervisor rejects it. That was performance, not teaching. Tell them the truth. The second attempt works better. She abandons her notes and speaks from memory about Mrs. Martinez, about Judge Sheindlin, about believing money would save her. One student asks if she still thinks she's better than everyone. She pauses. Honestly? Sometimes. Old habits are hard to break. But I'm trying to recognize it and correct it. The ethics course forces her to confront wealth inequality's impact on justice. One instructor challenges her about political donations. Do those donations influence policy? She considers lying. Then doesn't. Yes. My father expects access in return. He sees it as an investment. And you see why that's problematic? I'm starting to. When people like my father buy access, people without money get shut out. That's oligarchy, not democracy. Alexandra completes her reflection over 4 drafts. The final version acknowledges she believed philanthropy justified special treatment, that donations deserved exemptions. She was wrong. Charity doesn't purchase immunity. Wealth doesn't make her better than Officer Torres or Mrs. Martinez. The hardest lesson is accepting that her desires don't outrank someone else's needs just because her family has money. 5.5 months later, Alexandra returns to court. She's alone. No attorney. No family. She wears simple clothes and carries her completion documents. Judge Sheindlin reviews the materials silently, then looks up. Miss Whitmore, tell me what you learned. No script. Alexandra takes a breath. I learned that money doesn't make me important. It just makes me rich. Those are different things. When I threatened Officer Torres, I tried to corrupt the system by suggesting wealth could override her professional judgment. That's bigger than parking tickets. That's about whether we have a functioning democracy. When I blocked that loading zone, I didn't inconvenience someone. I stole access. I made Mrs. Martinez's son invisible. When I ignored court summons, I was saying my time is more valuable than the legal process. It's not. What did community service teach you? That real work is hard. I sorted vegetables for hours. My back hurt. I realized millions of people do that daily for minimum wage, while people like me complain about busy schedules. At the Disability Center, I learned accessibility isn't optional. It's a right. When we ignore it, we're being discriminatory. The ethics course showed me my family's donations aren't neutral. They buy access and shape policy unfairly. Judge Sheindlin nods. You came in here 6 months ago acting like you owned the place. Do you still believe that? No, Your Honor. Why not? Because you showed me what equality looks like. In your courtroom, my money was worthless. The only thing that mattered was whether I broke the law and would accept responsibility. You held me accountable when no one else ever had. That was a gift, even though it didn't feel like one. Judge Sheindlin allows a small smile. You're learning. I've reviewed your logs. 206 hours completed. Your supervisors reported you showed up on time, worked hard, and didn't complain. The workshop evaluations were positive. One student wrote, "You changed his mind about wealthy people because you admitted being wrong." That's powerful. I'm remitting $600 as promised. You owe $850. Payable in 6 monthly installments. She signs a form. The district attorney's office reviewed the footage. They decided not to pursue criminal charges. Your words were inappropriate but didn't rise to criminal bribery. Consider that a second chance you don't deserve but received anyway. Alexandra exhales. Thank you. Your Honor. Don't thank me. Thank Officer Torres for not pushing prosecution. Thank Mrs. Martinez for accepting your apology. Thank everyone who helped you. You're getting opportunities most defendants never receive. Don't waste them. Here's my final advice. You come from privilege. That's not your fault. What you do with it is your choice. You can return to being entitled, or you can use your advantages to make the world more equitable. You've spent 6 months learning about access, accountability, and justice. Now decide whether those lessons stick. They will. Your Honor. Then make them stick. When you notice restaurants aren't accessible, speak up. When friends park in disabled spaces, call them out. When your father's foundation ties donations to access, question it. Use your privilege to challenge the systems that gave you that privilege. Alexandra walks out, feeling genuine accountability for the first time. 6 months later, the policies take effect. The donor influence registry logs 17 contact attempts in the first quarter. All are documented publicly. Recusal protocols are adopted citywide. Immediate towing for accessible violations is implemented. Average clearance time drops from 90 minutes to 37 minutes. Complaints from disabled residents decrease significantly. 1 year after her court appearance, Alexandra receives a letter from Jennifer Martinez. Carlos completed his physical therapy program. His mobility has improved. The new towing policy for accessible zones has made a real difference. Thank you for completing your requirements. I hope the lesson stuck. Alexandra reads it 3 times. Then, files it carefully. She volunteers at the Disability Rights Center twice monthly now by choice. She attends City Harvest fundraisers and writes checks without seeking recognition. She questions her father when donations come with strings attached. It's not perfection. She slips into old patterns sometimes. Catches herself expecting special treatment. But now she recognizes it. She corrects it. Privilege isn't something you lose. It's something you choose to use responsibly. On a Friday afternoon, Judge Judith Sheindlin finishes her last case. Before leaving, she updates a note card behind her bench. Justice is for everyone, not just those who can afford it. When wealth tries to buy exemptions, the law must push back harder. She thinks about Alexandra Whitmore, about Officer Torres standing firm, about Carlos Martinez missing therapy. She thinks about all the cases where defendants used wealth as leverage. Not in her courtroom. Never. She turns off the light, locks the door, and walks out knowing that somewhere in Manhattan, a young woman is learning to live differently because someone finally held her accountable. That's justice. Not perfect, but real.